now and prepare for the future.
The nuclear wasteland we call home is full of all kinds of nice pre-war weapons and armor just waiting to be found and used. One of the most powerful and sought-after pieces of equipment is power armor, otherwise known as powered infantry armor or powered combat armor. But how did these walking tanks come to be? Well, let's go back to before the war, the year 2065 to be exact. As the resource wars were taking its toll on the European Commonwealth and other nations around the world, the United States government decided to expand and improve their military in order to preserve their status as a superpower and protect their stockpiles of oil from potential invaders. As such, the government defense contractor West-Tek was commissioned to start development on, well, tank armor, for lack of a better term. This powered infantry armor was intended to be more mobile than an actual tank and replace them on the battlefield. Beyond the eventual creation of such a powerful piece of military technology, this project also resulted in the salvation of American industry, at least temporarily, as part of West-Tek's research resulted in the creation of the first nuclear microfusion cell in the summer of 2066. These microfusion cells helped alleviate much of the country's energy problems, and this new technology was eventually incorporated into many civilian products, such as commercial robots and cars. Unfortunately, most other countries weren't doing so well, and in the winter of 2066, China declared war on the United States and invaded Alaska in order to gain control of their oil. This was the starting point of the Sino-American War. The invasion prompted the development of powered infantry armor to intensify even more. By the year 2067, West-Tek finally completed their work, and the very first suits of power armor were unveiled, the T-45. These suits were extremely durable, able to withstand large amounts of ballistic and energy damage, as well as offering great resistance to radiation. The suits also mechanically enhance its user's strength a great deal, a necessary feature considering how heavy the armor actually is. But as its name suggests, power armor needs power in order to function. Early models of the T-45 ran on small energy cells, but this proved very inefficient as it burned through them extremely fast. Later models, including the T-45D, were manufactured by West-Tek with built-in microfusion packs. And so, in 2067, the first suits of T-45D power armor were deployed on the battlefield in Alaska. Suffice to say, they were incredibly effective. The suits allowed for single troops to carry heavy ordnance that would normally require a team of soldiers to transport and operate. A single American infantryman using this armor could decimate an entire town occupied by the Chinese with next to no danger to themselves. Chinese infantry and tanks stood no chance. Thanks to their power armor, the United States was on the fast track to winning the Sino-American War and driving the Chinese out of Alaska. But the Chinese were not about to give up, and began development of their own technologically advanced armor to compete with America's powered infantry armor. By 2074, the United States was on the full-on offensive. Despite claims of only wishing to reclaim Alaska, American troops, including those clad in power armor, were sent to China as the United States began their own invasion of the Chinese mainland. However, this proved to be little more than a further drain on America's resources. In the midst of this, West-Tek was busy developing the next series of power armor meant to succeed the T-45. By 2075, testing was being performed at Fort Strong in Boston on an early batch of prototypes for this new armor. Finally, this new power armor was completed and unveiled in 2076. Say hello to the T-51. An improvement over the T-45 in pretty much every way, the T-51 represents what most consider to be the pinnacle of pre-war power armor technology. Unlike the T-45, which was composed of riveted steel plates, the T-51 instead uses plastic composite materials, meaning it not only offers more protection than its predecessor, but it's also much more lightweight. The various electronic and mechanical subsystems of the T-45 were left exposed to the outside, likely due to the time constraints West-Tek was under during its development. This problem was corrected with the T-51, with everything being safely encased. Like later models of the T-45, all sets of T-51 power armor are fitted with built-in microfusion packs, with enough power to last at least 100 years. Upon its completion, many T-51B suits were sent to both the Alaskan front and mainland China. With the aid of this new and improved power armor, an American victory in Alaska was all but guaranteed. Similarly in China, soldiers clad in T-51B armor effectively ended the stalemate that had emerged during the American invasion. As the Americans began cutting through Chinese forces with relative ease, the Chinese unveiled their own technologically advanced armor, though they went with a slightly more subtle approach than the Americans. Behold, the Haigway, or Black Ghost stealth armor, referred to by the Americans as simply Chinese stealth armor. As the name suggests, on top of offering a high amount of protection, this armor allowed its wearer to make use of an advanced cloaking device, making its user nearly invisible. These suits were issued to the Chinese elite Crimson Dragoons, who were not only sent to aid in the Anchorage front line, but also participated in an attempt by the Chinese to sabotage Hoover Dam. Despite the effectiveness of the Haigway stealth armor, however, the Chinese were still no closer to achieving victory over the United States. At some point, one of these suits was captured by the Americans, who reverse-engineered it to produce the effective, yet unstable, Stealth Boy units. Finally, in January of 2077, despite heavy losses on both sides, the United States succeeded in liberating and reclaiming Alaska after a decisive victory in the Battle of Anchorage. Despite this victory, however, things back in the mainland United States weren't going so well. The cost of the war had taken a great toll on America, with resource shortages resulting in massive food riots, as well as the outbreak of a deadly disease known as New Plague. This resulted in the American government deploying soldiers clad in power armor on American soil for use in crowd and quarantine control. As you may expect, things didn't get better. The disorder grew worse, as many civilians were killed in fights with the military and police. Shortly after the reclamation of Alaska in early 2077, the brand new T-60 series of power armor was completed, intended to eventually replace the T-51 as a pinnacle of powered combat armor technology. Unfortunately, not much information is known about this particular series of power armor, other than the fact that it does indeed offer even higher protection than that of the T-51. Like its predecessors, the T-45 and T-51, the T-60 was also deployed domestically, seemingly exclusively in the area known as New England Commonwealth. It's unknown if this armor was ever actually deployed for combat before the Great War. Speaking of which, after the bombs flew and much of the planet was reduced to a radioactive wasteland, further development of power armor was obviously halted for a while. But the use of pre-existing suits certainly did not. Indeed, despite most everything else being decimated by the nukes, many suits of power armor were luckily left largely unscathed, or at least salvageable. However, only a group with ties to the pre-war military and or government would have the knowledge and resources to maintain and make use of these suits. One such organization which would emerge shortly after the Great War would be the Brotherhood of Steel. Founded by a group of ex-United States soldiers, the Brotherhood of Steel is dedicated to finding and collecting as much advanced pre-war technology as possible. This, of course, includes power armor. As a largely militarized organization, most members of the Brotherhood are issued their own suit of power armor. Most members of the original West Coast Brotherhood of Steel are clad in suits of T-51 armor, although some will occasionally have to make do with the less advanced T-45. Meanwhile, members of the East Coast Brotherhood of Steel, stationed out of post-war Washington, D.C., now known as the Capital Wasteland, all make use of T-45 suits, due to the fact that T-51 suits are much rarer on the East Coast. However, more recently the East Coast Brotherhood has made trips up north to the area now known simply as the Commonwealth, where they've come across a nice supply of T-60 suits. Unfortunately, due to the rarity of this armor, not all members of the Brotherhood are issued them. Then there's the Midwestern Brotherhood of Steel, who wear... Anyway, for a while the Brotherhood of Steel were pretty much the only group in the post-war wasteland using power armor on a large scale, and as such have almost become synonymous with power armor. So if you ever see someone walking around in an intimidating suit of power armor, chances are they're Brotherhood. But things change, and eventually other groups started to find and make use of these suits as well. One such example is the New California Republic. Although much less technologically advanced than the Brotherhood, the NCR managed to salvage several suits of T-45D power armor during their war with the Brotherhood. NCR technicians restored them to working order, however at the cost of stripping the mechanisms which gave its wearer increased strength. This resulted in the NCR salvaged power armor giving its user a great deal of protection at the cost of a great deal of their agility. These suits are issued to NCR heavy troopers. Fully functional suits of T-45D power armor were also used by the now defunct Brotherhood outcasts in the Capital Wasteland, and several raiders in the Commonwealth have managed to create some suits of functional, yet relatively inferior, makeshift power armor by welding metal plates onto a salvaged power armor frame. Despite all this though, no post-war organization had the capability to actually develop any new forms of power armor, not even the Brotherhood of Steel. That is, of course, until the rise of the Enclave, an organization comprised of high-level officials of the United States government and their descendants. The Enclave has existed since even before the war. After the Great War, the Enclave remained at their headquarters located on a Poseidon Energy oil rig off the coast of California, slowly consolidating their military forces, planning to eventually make their presence known to the wasteland and rebuild their once great nation. Starting in 2198, over 100 years after the Great War, the Enclave's skilled team of engineers and scientists began work on a large-scale project to develop various new technologies for use by the Enclave. Part of this project, of course, involved the development of a new series of power armor, intended to be much more powerful than anything from before the war. Several prototype suits were completed, but none of them were much of an improvement over the T-51 or T-60. In fact, some were even worse. However, finally in 2215, after some minor accidents, explosions, and deaths, the very first truly improved and reliable suit of post-war power armor was completed, the XO1. Otherwise known as simply Advanced Power Armor, it was a vast improvement over the T-51 and T-60. Offering an even higher degree of protection from ballistic and energy damage, as well as radiation resistance, the XO1 is composed of lightweight metal alloys, reinforced with ceramic castings at key stress points. The more advanced mechanisms housed within also lend its user an even greater boost to their strength. The suit also features an auto-gyro system to keep it upright, with the knees able to be locked in position so as to avoid falling over. The XO1 power armor entered service in 2220, when the suits were issued to many of the Enclave's soldiers. By 2241, the Enclave had completed an even more advanced version of their power armor, the XO2, more commonly known as simply Advanced Power Armor Mark II. While this armor was nearly identical in appearance to its predecessor, it offered even more protection, being composed of entirely lightweight ceramic composites, rather than a combination of metal and ceramic plates. Shortly before the Enclave was defeated and their oil rig base destroyed in 2242, a prototype variant of the XO1 armor was completed. The Tesla power armor was a suit of advanced power armor with a jury-rigged Tesla device attached. This device was created based on plans designed by Nikola Tesla himself, which were confiscated by the US government after his death. The device dispersed a large percentage of the damage done by energy weapons, as well as boosting the power of the user's own energy weapons. Seeing as the Tesla power armor was only in the prototype stage before the Enclave was dissolved, it was never issued to any soldiers. In fact, only one known suit of its kind remains. After the Enclave's defeat on the West Coast, most of the remaining personnel traveled east, towards the Capital Wasteland. Here they would set up a new headquarters at an old military base called Raven Rock, and once again slowly begin consolidating their power until they were ready to attempt to take control of the wasteland once more. During this time, the Enclave began mass-producing the Advanced Power Armor Mark II, which became the new standard issue armor for their soldiers. Despite having the same designation, however, the armor went through a radical redesign. In fact, it looks a bit familiar. Anyway, the Enclave also created a Tesla variant for the XO2, the Tesla Power Armor Mark II. Unlike the original Tesla Power Armor, this one actually made it past the prototype stage and was issued to higher-ranking Enclave soldiers. As the Enclave continued to establish themselves in the Capital Wasteland, they also began to establish several other bases in the surrounding area. One such Enclave compound was housed at Adams Air Force Base, located just outside the Capital Wasteland. It was here that the Enclave scientists and engineers once again undertook several research projects to produce new and more advanced technologies. One such project included the creation of iBots using an extremely durable material called duraframe. However, under the direction of Colonel Augustus Autumn, this and most of the other projects were to be abandoned in favor of focusing on the development of yet another new, more advanced suit of power armor. The official designation for this armor is currently unknown, but say hello to the Enclave Hellfire power armor. Uniquely crafted using duraframe components, this armor offers even higher protection from both ballistic and energy damage than any previous models of power armor, and as its name suggests, also features a high resistance to heat. Once completed, this armor was issued exclusively to the Enclave's elite Hellfire troopers armed with heavy incinerators. To date, the Hellfire power armor is the single most advanced and powerful model of power armor ever produced. In conclusion, power armor is badass.